let's discuss physical versus
digital.
And which one of those two is better?
Let's find out.
So I think it goes without saying, if you've been watching our channel, you know we have a very big physical game library. We've made plenty of videos. Our shelf videos centers around physical game collecting. And we actually have around 2,600 physical games in our entire collection. However, something we haven't talked about is the amount of digital games that we have in our collection.
Did you calculate that as well?
Sort of. I think we have a rough estimate, but it looks like we have around 1,300 digital games.
Wow.
That does not include subscriptions like Game Pass and PlayStation Plus.
So we're set for life?
Pretty much, yeah. That backlog will never go away. So we pretty much have everything we need, I think. And a lot of these digital games we own physically as well.
Okay, so we're going to be looking at 5 different sections when it comes to digital and physical gaming. We're going to be looking at the convenience and accessibility. We're going to be looking at storage and space consideration. Also at ownership and resale value, along with longevity and preservation. And lastly, we're going to be looking at the cost.
So since we have a lot of sections to go through, why don't we start with the convenience? Where do we stand on digital versus physical when it comes to convenience and accessibility?
Well, if I hear convenient and that's related to gaming, I'm going to definitely say digital. The digital gaming is way more convenient in the way of you don't even have to get off your couch in order to swap games out. You have access to all these games, and you don't have to lift a finger in order to. Well, you do have to literally lift a finger. But
you have to press the download.
You have to press the button, press the download button, but you don't have to go swap discs out or put them back into the right cases, or it's way more convenient with digital.
So one of my favorite aspects of having a digital library or something like Game Pass even is that we're able to share the games. If you're in a different room, if we want to play a co-op game, or I've purchased a game that I wanted to play, but then you wanted to play it later on, you don't have to necessarily be at my Xbox, for instance, or have to borrow my disc. You can just play it anywhere. And that's really great because we don't really have to buy 3 copies of a game. And that to me is probably the biggest selling point for having a digital game is the convenience, accessibility. And as you know, I recently went out of town and I brought our Series S on the trip, which was, I don't know, I can't think of anything more convenient really, because I could always play on my laptop, but I don't have a gaming laptop. But bringing the Series S, hooking it up to the hotel TV, I was able to continue what I was doing at home with Batman Arkham City. That's the game I'm working on currently. And I was able to progress in my game, have a little bit of downtime in between, whatever else I was doing. And to me, that's the most amazing thing because I didn't have to bring any discs. I didn't have to worry about the disc getting scratched up or getting crushed in my luggage.
That's so true. And, when you talk about the digital gamings and how we can share them, it reminds me of when we all played Strange Brigade together. I mean, we played that 3-player. Yeah, exactly. Imagine if we had to buy 3 physical games to put into 3 different Xboxes. Now, thankfully, we do have 3 Xboxes that we were able to play on, right? And we were playing on different TVs and stuff. But we only had to buy 1 physical and 1 digital. And that covered us. Because there's not a lot of, I can't think of a lot of convenience points that I can give to physical.
No, not really. Because let's say you had to get a new game or you bought a new game. You have to wait for it to ship to you or you have to go to the store.
Yeah.
So you're spending a lot of time, a lot of gas. And we've seen that with even limited run. When you order stuff, you actually don't know when it's going to arrive.
Yeah, no, you can wait months.
I played Alan Wake 2 a year before we got the collector's edition for it.
That's so true.
And so it's like a lot of people had a problem with that game being digital only to start. However, I'm glad I played it. I didn't have to wait a year for the physical to come out. By then, to be perfectly honest, I may have lost interest in that game. I wanted to play it at launch, and that's what happened. That's what I did.
And maybe then it's even more convenient for the actual developers and publishers in a sense too, because they were able to get that game out to you sooner then waiting for them also to have to go through production and get the discs out into the world. So
Yeah, that was perfect segue into the next one then. So let's talk about storage, because we know having such a big collection of 2,600 games, that doesn't even include the collector's editions and all the other stuff that we have laying around in boxes, or just we still have some of it displayed, but the space needed for digital is non-existent except for hard drives, which can get costly too. Like as we know with our Xbox Ones, with our Series S, Series X, I don't even know how many hard drives we have for each.
I was going to say, I think like the S especially, I think we have like 2 hard drives connected up to that thing right now.
We have the internal hard drive, and then kind of the expansion, and then we have an external hard drive as well. Yeah. So when you buy a digital game, the only issue, and I don't know if people can relate to this, that when you buy games on sale, and then you buy games on the next sale, you lose track of what you own. With something like a physical collection, you can see it. But especially for Xbox, and it's probably like that for the Steam library too, you just see a wall of pictures, right? And you're just like, I don't even know what's going on here. And you forgot that you bought a game. Many times I bought a game twice on like a different Xbox because it didn't recognize that I owned it. It happens. So
you really wanted that game then?
Yeah, I guess so. It was like Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, Temple of Osiris or something like that. Yeah, it wasn't even... It's a good game, but still not worthy of buying twice. But it's harder to keep track of, and that's why we install a lot of the games in hopes that we'll be inspired to start the game, which hardly ever happens. Like that's why we kind of... You've mentioned this too. We group them together.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think I have so many groups on my Xbox that I guess my Xbox profile, that's the cool thing. It carries over right into any Xbox you play on. But yeah, I have so many groups just to help me keep track of like what I'm currently playing, what I want to play, the co-op games we want to play together, and then I even have my backlog group, and that one's getting sadder and sadder because it just keeps growing. But yeah, sometimes I will even install a game just so I can add it to a group, and then I will uninstall it because I'm running out of space. I mean, one thing you don't have to worry about with digital, and this especially will resonate with people who have kids or young children, is you don't have to worry about them getting damaged or losing them. I know especially when it came to those little Switch cartridges, wow, those things could get lost so easily. I was so scared we were going to lose one. I don't even know how we didn't lose one, matter of fact. It's one of those types of things. But another, like a con for physical is when it's time to move. Wow. Us boxing up all of our physical games,
which we've done a few times, and that's a huge undertaking.
It's a huge undertaking, and so I mean, just not just in terms of the storage space that you need to display your collection and to store it within your house, but also when it comes time to actually move those games. Yeah, it's a lot. Whereas with our digital games, like you said, you packed it up in a suitcase. You just took that Xbox Series S with you in a suitcase and you were ready to go.
I installed the game before I left and then plug and play. Yeah. Oh. So it was very convenient, as we said, and didn't take up much room. But if I'd brought, obviously I couldn't bring my desktop computer on vacation, but...
Yeah, bring a nice tower in your suitcase. That'll be good.
Yeah. But in terms of the physical aspect, you're absolutely right. Like if you're moving, you have to box things up. If you have to downsize the size of your house, you might have to sell. You might have to... So there's always that aspect of it that isn't ideal. And worst case, if something happens, if there's a natural disaster, or you just lose the games somehow.
Absolutely. So, I mean, when it comes to storage, I think this one goes to digital as well. Although, like we said, the hard drives can get expensive, I think digital's going to win when it comes to the storage.
This next section, I think, is what most people are passionate about when it comes to this particular topic, and that's ownership and resale value. I know what side I'm on here. It still doesn't mean that I can't appreciate the other one. But as we know, with anything from Game Pass to buying digital games on sale to buying full price, right? Buying a game full price digitally, you don't own it. You're just renting it. It's a subscription. It's a license. And as we know with Game Pass, you can play a game and then it leaves like 3 months later, 6 months later, 12 months later. Then you don't have ownership of it.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've played a game on Game Pass, and then when it left, I went and bought it.
That happens too. It's kind of like they're dangling a carrot in front of you saying, hey, this game that you wanted to play and now you don't have time to play it, we'll put it on sale right before, right after. And then you are kind of not forced to buy it, but you know that that might be the only way you can play it.
Yeah, especially when you're in the middle of that game or you've got a lot of hours into it. You still want to complete it, right? But you don't want to put that timer on yourself and say, I've got 3 months to play this game. Go.
Well, many times I've actually jumped on a game knowing that's leaving Game Pass, and then I've forced myself to play the game, and I haven't enjoyed it one bit. Granted, the game might have been bad to begin with, but like when you put a time frame on yourself, I think that's probably one of the worst feelings, because you know for a fact that unless the game is like an hour or two long, you're never going to enjoy that game.
And when it comes to physical, that's not something we have to worry about. We're not worried about Nintendo coming to our house and literally removing games from our collection.
That would be weird. That would be a little bit weird if they did. They're like, hey, give us your games. Give us our games back.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, your license is up.
Yeah, exactly. And then the good thing about collecting, because we obviously, it's a big part of our channel. Like, we can't say that we don't enjoy the ownership and even sometimes the resale value too, because some of our games can go up in price.
There's still that feeling of an investment when you own a actual physical game. And I mean, we have plenty of games in our collection that I have no desire to ever sell. But is it fun to watch the prices go up on them? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Of course. You know, you feel like, oh my gosh, our game collection's like worth something, right?
And since we love game hunting, you can't game hunt digital games.
No.
That's like that whole passion that we have for going out to stores, finding treasures, finding good deals. You don't get that. Like digital games, you put it in the cart and then you check out and then you're like, okay, I spent a lot of money on games I'm never going to play. But if you go to a store like we did recently, picked up a PS2 game, picked up an Xbox game, and we know that we wanted to have this because it's hard to find. And we've been trying to grow that collection because we want to play the games.
I mean, and also, let's say you buy that game physically and it's not what you thought it was going to be. You don't like it. Guess what? You can sell it, right?
You can resell it, and hopefully it's at a better price or something. But yeah, that's one thing obviously you can't do with digital games.
No.
You can't resell it. You can't trade it. You can gift it to people, of course, like you can with a physical copy, but it's just not the same.
Yeah,
it
but
really
it's
isn't
not
the
the
same.
same as in like you can't play a game and then say give this to another account.
That would be funny, actually. I mean, I don't know if that's like if you said I didn't like Borderlands 3, I want to re-gift it to someone else for half
go
the
give
price.
it to my friend over here, you know?
But it's an interesting one because I think absolute true ownership only exists with physical media.
Yeah.
So that's why we are collecting. We love game hunting. Anyone who tries to debate that newer consoles are not worth collecting for versus older ones, we get it, but we still collect for all of them.
Yeah.
As much as we can, at least.
I mean, and I think I might, I'm a little bit different there than you, for instance, where I like having the physical just of a game that I really love. I mean, it's just something about having that in our collection, seeing it physically. I know it's not on the disc all the way. I don't know that I care. It's just like a memorabilia kind of item. But I can totally see that being a waste of money to other people, and I get that too.
And not to mention the collector's editions, you can't get, limited editions, you can't get those digitally, although they tell you it's a premium edition, deluxe edition.
Oh, man.
It's just not the same. Like I don't really go for those unless they're super cheap digitally.
Yeah. Don't even get me started on those. I get kind of upset actually when I see they want pre-orders for these like ultimate editions. They're $99 digital. I'm like, hey, unless I'm getting a statue and like a steelbook, don't talk to me about $99, okay?
And the next one, we can kind of tack on to the last topic that we talked about, and that's about preservation. So obviously we know with physical games, it's the ultimate preservation of a video game is when you have it in your collection.
Yep.
You own the game. You can do whatever you wish with it. You can play the game. You can resell it. You can pass it on through the generations to your kids, grandkids. However, with digital games, there's a big issue here with as we saw last year, the Xbox 360 store shut down. It caused like massive FOMO and inflation in physical prices, which surprised me a little bit because not all of them were even digital to begin with. So then why would a physical only game suddenly shoot up in price because a digital marketplace shuts down? However, there's always that risk, right? Like whenever you want to buy a game, or if you own a game, like we mentioned earlier, they can just completely remove it off the store or just make it so that you can't even re-download the game.
Along those same lines, I was playing Omori last year, I think, and it was on Game Pass. And thankfully, I at least got through one whole playthrough. But it was removed from Game Pass. But soon after it was removed from Game Pass, or almost immediately, it was also taken down from the store. And Xbox never saw the physical edition of Omori. And now you can't even buy the digital version of Omori. So now I can't progress anymore. I can't play the game anymore. I totally planned on buying it. I knew they weren't going to get a physical, so I was going to buy the digital version. I was just waiting for it to go on sale. And now look, I have no Omori.
And that's what also causes digital FOMO as well, not just the FOMO for physical games, because I found myself a lot of times due to things that have happened, such as the Omori story. I tend to prematurely buy games that I don't even know if I want to play just so I have access to it. And that is kind of a big problem.
So when it comes to preservation, I mean, what do you got to say? Digital or physical then on that one?
I would still go with physical for this one because the digital, it's still a license. You're just borrowing the game. So if they shut down any access to that, you can't play the game anymore.
And it would be a huge waste of money that we put into all these games that we might not get anything out of at all.
Exactly. So that's why, like, you almost have to buy a digital game and play it right away, or go with something like Game Pass if you want to really play the game there and then. If you're a physical game collector, it makes sense to do it over time.
I mean, Game Pass, PS Plus, at least you know you're renting.
Yes, exactly. It's like Netflix. And then something that obviously is important to a lot of people, the cost of these games in general, because that's been in the last 5 years, I would say, even more relevant than any time before that, because we often buy stuff on sale. And I wouldn't say we pre-order a lot of games digitally. I think that's kind of like I said, Alan Wake 2, I pre-ordered that one. I used some Microsoft points. I can have it towards it just to justify it. But typically I don't like to do that because you're paying full price for a game that you don't own.
I mean, I have to say, when it comes to pre-ordering digital games, I never want to do that almost, because I actually don't see that much of a drop in price, especially when it comes to like AAA title. I mean, I can get the physical, Ultimates edition. They're like the same price as the digital ones, and it makes no sense to me. I mean, honestly, I think digital releases should be way cheaper.
Totally agree.
Than the physical ones that we're also able to get. So when I see these new games coming out, and I'll use like Atelier Yumiya that's coming out here soon, since I was just looking at that one, and they're trying to charge like $100 for the Ultimate Edition, and you're just getting digital goods with it. And I'm thinking, well, then I'll just go to Nipponichi and just buy the physical one where I get acrylic stands and special boxes and art books and soundtracks, I mean, why not?
And one of the downsides to pre-ordering physical games is that obviously it's going to be slightly more expensive for that production cost of it, but then the resale value, we see a lot of scalpers, they pre-order it and then they sell it for double or triple the price. So then you might be screwed over because of that. So you're forced to pre-order a game and then you pay a lot more than you really want. And that's why I think we've limited that to games we really want to play and buy. It's not like we don't buy every kind of IM 8-bit release, we are very selective about that. But I agree with you on the digital. Like, it doesn't make sense to buy those if you know you want to get the physical for it.
And again, that's another thing that contributes to the FOMO, is that exactly what you just said there, is that I don't know if the price is going to double, right after it comes out. I've also regretted some purchases where I did pre-order it or I bought it right away, full price, And then like 3 months later, right, it goes down to, half the price or something like that. And I just go, crap, like I bought it full price because I don't know how many copies they put out there in the world. And I could have just waited. I hadn't even played the game yet, and it's already gone down half. And that's painful.
Yeah, it is. And you end up spending a lot of money that you probably didn't want to spend, because you're just thinking, okay, well then if I don't buy this, then a scalper is going to sell it for 3 times the price. Like, I'm still bitter about the Halo Infinite console. I cannot believe it's the only Series X that I ever wanted. And I can't get it. Like, I'm not willing to pay double, triple prices.
And I can't even tell you how many apps I had downloaded just so we could try to track that console. Like, remember there were these apps that were telling you, like, Target's getting this money in on this day and, this store. And we were, like, going everywhere trying to find that dang console for just the actual price, not pay scalper prices.
Exactly. But one good thing that we'll say about the digital distribution is that we've seen a lot of indie games, a lot more accessible for the indie games. A lot of good games that maybe we wouldn't have seen typically on consoles because, you can look at PC and most games get released there, especially indie games. But we got to see a lot of really good indie games at a good price.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm very passionate about the indie game market, and that is one thing that has made me so, so happy is to see how these one-person developers can bring their games to us on console so much easier, And those are games that I just feel like, what if we never got to play those games? Or back in the day, they would need to be associated with like a big publisher like Nintendo or Sony or Konami or something in order to just get their game to see the light of day. But now, thanks to Steam, as well.
And Game Pass.
I have to say, Xbox Game Pass does a really great job of like trying to get these indie developers out there and get their games onto Game Pass. So, yeah, that's definitely a huge bonus and for the digital games.
Although people like to say that there's too many indie games on Game Pass when we read the reviews in the Microsoft Store.
Oh, that makes me so angry when people start knocking these indie games just because they wanted, like, I don't know, more AAA titles.
They want Doom games every year, I think. Yeah,
and I'm like
Doom and Starfield.
I think it's great that these indie developers get this, like, to be on Game Pass. What a great, like, what great exposure for them.
And lastly, like the most important thing I think to talk about when it comes to cost is the copious amounts of sales that we see digitally. I don't feel like we see that many physical sales anymore. I know we have Black Friday every year, but we've talked about this previously where we used to save up kind of towards that time of year. We didn't buy that many physical games. And then we would just kind of splurge around Black Friday and buy all the physical games we wanted. So we really like the Remnant games.
Oh, yeah.
And Remnant 1 was pretty available, I would say, when it came out on Xbox One. However, Remnant 2 never seemed to go below like $40 physically. So we had to kind of look around for a while. I think it took a couple of years before we actually bought the physical. And by that time, we already bought it digitally. It came to Game Pass. And then the physical was actually at a decent price. So you can kind of see it used to be the opposite almost. Like you bought the physical and then maybe along the lines,
the digital will go on sale or something.
And later on you would buy that one. So then it's just like, it's almost the opposite, I feel now, because of all the sales. And I don't even know how many videos on YouTube are recommended to me where people are talking about their backlogs and their Steam library and whatever else where it's just they can't get through it. And it's because it's even cheaper there. Like, so I can't even imagine. We don't spend that much time on Steam, but it's almost too available there because that's the only platform. That's the only way they can deliver games to people.
Yep. Okay, so this last one, when it comes to cost, this is kind of the tiebreaker here.
Yeah, this is like, I didn't know until we did this that it was going to be 2 and 2, and then the cost was going to be the tiebreaker here. There's a reason we have 1,300 digital games across all of our consoles. The majority of those 2,600 physical games are older retro consoles.
That's true.
So we have collected, obviously, for PS4, Xbox One, Series X, but we clearly prioritize retro consoles physically, and then the newer ones, I don't think we have much of a preference. We like owning the physical, but because it is sometimes more expensive, we tend to go digital
This is true, and that is what I'm mainly playing. If I'm playing on the newer consoles, yeah, I'm playing the digital version of that game.
If we like a game on Game Pass, then we buy the physical for it too, just to kind of support the developer a little bit more and just have it in our collection so we can play it later, because you can't always trust Game Pass to
Yeah.
they're not going to keep games forever.
So, I mean, what do we give? Do we give it to digital then when it comes to cost?
I think so. Especially now with the inflation of the physical market, the digital wins, at least for now.
Wow, I'm actually surprised. We want to hear from you guys. What do you prefer, digital or physical? What are you collecting at the moment? And where do you see your collection going from here?
And don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe for more of this kind of stuff.
Until next time, bye!